Welcome to 13 minutes of gig news in 13 minutes or less. Yes, or less. Never once, not once have I gone over 13 minutes. I've got to 12:59 before. Um, and I don't have an alarm that goes off at 12 minutes or 11 minutes or anything. I just kind of have to keep track and see how many of the stories I can do. So what I do is I put them in an order that I would like to flow with, and if we need to move around, I do. And I try and start off with the biggest story and work my way to the smaller ones. That way, I get through as much as I can. But here's the problem this week: we have some big stories. So, excuse me. I'm going to try and get through all three here, but let's see if I can do it. So, first of all, I didn't know the launch story is always got to be my big one. So, there's a few that are big ones. Two in complete, I mean, it's a toss up. But I'm going to go with this first. So, Uber Teen has launched in most cities. Uber Teen, all the drivers that I've talked to who have it in their cities, which has been quite a few, they are, you can go into the settings and turn off Uber Teen just like you can Uber Pet. You can, so I would suggest to everybody to do that. If you're doing rideshare and you haven't and you're not familiar with Uber Teen, it means that you are allowing yourself to take 13 to 17-year-olds in your car. They will have their own accounts, but it will be sub accounts of the parents, and the parents will have already signed a waiver. So here's my thing: I suggest to every single driver out there to turn them off, because not only is this a bad move, it's very clear what happened. So since I started driving in 2015 and since Uber started in 2009, they have always said, with all the changes to everything, they've always said no unaccompanied minors, right? And they would even pay you the cancel fee if they needed to. I mean, if you did it properly, because, yeah, I mean, no unaccompanied minors is no unaccompanied minors. Right now, we are at the lowest rate in history for 16-year-olds who don't have their license. So just to put it into perspective, 25% of 16-year-olds in this country right now have their driver's license. That's way down from what it used to be. So what is Uber probably doing? I mean, I'm just putting two and two together here, but they're saying, hey, these kids aren't caring about their license. They're not saving up to get a first car. They don't care. We need to be breeding them to use Uber. So they're just deciding to go against their moral compass here. But here's my thing, and here's my challenge, you guys. Um, you guys have probably maybe you've seen or heard the podcast I've done with Legal Rideshare. I've talked to some other lawyers who represent rideshare delivery space people, but I always go back to Legal Rideshare and Bryant at Legal Rideshare. It's legalrideshare.com. This is just a free plug because I believe in them. Bryant is the CEO and founder. Him or one of his teammates will give you a free consultation on anything gig related. So legalrideshare.com, you should check them out. But here's one thing that I know for a fact. So we don't need to talk about phases 0, 1, 2, but we need to talk about phase 3. Phase 3 in rideshare is when you've picked up your customer and you're on the way to the destination, the final portion of the phases of the trip. When Uber is supposed to have you and Lyft 100% insured, you are covered through them. I can tell you from talking to Legal Rideshare, to other ones, they all tell me the same tale, that even when there's a situation in phase 3 and you are moving the customer, Uber has like a checklist of like 100 things. And if you don't meet like however many of those things, they will challenge it and try and put it back onto you and your insurance during phase 3. Okay, now let me kind of I don't have exact stats in front of you, but I will just say this is not a small number. I don't think I'm stepping out of I'm not, okay, I'll just be careful. I'm not stepping out of line to say more than half of the incidents in phase 3 are challenged by Uber. So, when the incidents start, if you're willing to drive a teen, which you shouldn't be, but if you're willing to drive a teen, and once the incidents start of even just an accusation, a teenager accusing you of something, or this or that or the other, when Uber brings out their checklist and they go, okay, he was in phase 3, he had the kid in the car, and they go down this checklist, do you think that they're going to go, yeah, it's clean. Let's back them on this, and we got them. Or do you think that they will claim independent contractor driver? We saw the offer, we put it out to him, he accepted it. It's on him to deal with it and let you have to, which is what happens to a lot of drivers now without the teen situation. Is then they have to go back to their insurance. And that's where if you're carrying the right insurance, your insurance kind of has you. But here'd be my challenge to you. Go ask your insurance agent, like, hey, I don't even, Uber has this new thing out. Plus, it'd be good for them all to know. Uber has this new thing out called Uber Teen. Um, do I need to talk to you about that if I'm going to be doing that? Because my guess is at this point, with the amount of time Uber's been around, the amount of time they've been in all states, all areas of this country, every insurance agent has had a run-in with an Uber situation by now. And I'm sure they know what a problem Uber is to deal with. My guess is they're going to say, where do you get off transporting teens, first of all? And they'll tell you not to do it because here's why. I have interviewed multiple companies, little startups, one's in Atlanta, one's in Cincinnati, some of the bigger ones, Hop, Skip, Drive, that do this, that transport children only as their demographic. Now, most of them are out of business. Almost all of them. Hop, Skip, Drive is still around. I don't know of any others, honestly. I interviewed 2 or 3 other ones that are both out of business, and it had nothing to do with the pandemic. It had nothing to do with clients. They had overflow of clients. What it had to do with was the fact that the insurance was outrageous. So if companies who want to be a rideshare company for kids can't make it, how come you, an Uber driver, are going to be covered? Please put your comments down below, because I would love to know. I want to know how the driver will be covered in this situation, or what you think Uber will do handling this, knowing how they handle everything else. Okay, so let me know what you think about that one. I think this needs to go away quickly. Hopefully it becomes one of Uber's stupid projects that just doesn't work, phases out and dies. The thing is, they didn't do test cities. They just launched it everywhere, which is worrisome to me. But regardless, put down below what you think. Been loving the comments lately, by the way, guys. Make me think, and you're making me write some, but I love them. The other thing that happened this week, so if you go back in the other last 13 minutes of news, I talked about this, what's going on in Minnesota. So they wrote a bill that couldn't be met by Uber. Uber said there isn't a company that carries that insurance, and they came back the next week. They debated on the number. They got all the junk out of the bill. They cleaned up the language a little bit. And then last weekend, on Saturday and Sunday, they had to run a Senate legislative session in Minnesota because they did not get, not just because of that, but because of some other things. And bills are attached to bills, which I always hate. I've explained that before, where if, like, let's say there's 2 bills and this other bill is, they attach the bill. So if all 3 don't pass, none of them pass. So I hate that. I think every bill should be able to stand on its own. If it can't, I think that it's admitting there's a problem with the bill. But that said, they were there last weekend, and last Sunday night, they decided, you know what? We're going to pass this bill in its form. Its form was a minimum $5 ride for an Uber driver. And this is for Minnesota, St. Paul, so the Twin City area, and the state of Minnesota. It was $1.45 a mile and 34 cents a minute, and for the Twin Cities, and it was $1.35 a mile and 34 cents a minute for the rest of the state. Now, that is the same amount that Seattle charges or pays the drivers there under a similar type legislation. Here's the difference, though. The cost of living in Seattle versus the Twin Cities is about 3 times as much. So my question was, why is it the same? Why is it 5 cents less for what they're going for in Minnesota a mile? I mean, like, scale it maybe a little better. But regardless, it passed the House, passed the Senate, went back to the House like it has to, got its sign there again. Completely done, on the governor's desk. And if you're not familiar, Governor Walz of Minnesota has never in his career vetoed a bill until this one. And he's not new to politics. He's been around forever. He sides with he sides with the House and the Senate, mostly in his state. His state is very left leaning, and he usually has no issue with their things. Earlier along this way, he's led them to believe he's on board with this. Now, did he not have enough information, or is he in the pocket of some of these big giant app companies? Leave it in the comments what you think. What do you think about Governor Walz in Minnesota? Is he on the take, or is he a good guy who just didn't have enough information? Last story, and I'm running out of time here. So, have you guys heard of blackwolfapp.com? blackwolfapp.com. Okay. This is a new rideshare company based out of Atlanta and New York City, and has expansion plans for 3 other cities already. Now, they are new, so expansion plans, what do they really mean at this point? I don't know. But what is blackwolfapp.com? I'll give you this hint. It's rideshare. And we've seen a lot of rideshare companies do startups. We've seen rideshare companies for women only, with women only drivers in the Atlanta area. And again, notice Atlanta, because Atlanta has a lot of violence, and a lot of violence going around their rideshare too. I know we hear about it everywhere, but this is, I'm sure there's something to why they keep doing these things. So, how is the woman driving rideshare company going? Not 100% sure. Should probably check on that soon. But what is Black Wolf App? It's rideshare company where every driver on their platform is armed and trained to use a firearm. So, would you feel more comfortable if you're a customer, you're in Atlanta, and now there's a price difference too. So let's not get into that, because it seems a little more black car-ish, but it is trying to hit on everybody. But would you feel more comfortable getting into a car where the driver has a gun and he's trained properly, or into an Uber or Lyft where they might have a gun, not be trained properly, but they have one for their protection? Put it down in the comments, guys. Interested to know. And that, guys, is 13 minutes of news in just under 13 minutes. Go have yourself a great holiday weekend, and we'll see you back here next week. Peace.